Welcome back, students. Before we have our afternoon story, I want to remind you of a story we read last week. So last week, for Dia del Idioma, we read Mañana Iguana. And if you'll remember, it was about an iguana who had 3 friends. And at the beginning of the week, she had the idea to have a party, but nobody would help her all week long. And she kept having to say, I'll do it myself, you know? And I was wondering if any of you made a connection to another story that I've read to you. Well, I did read this story to you before called The Little Red Hen Goes to School. That's more of a clue, right? So this is another version of the Little Red Hen story. Do you remember the Little Red Hen that's illustrated? I like the version especially illustrated by Paul Galdone, one of my favorite children's book illustrators. And remember, the Little Red Hen has a mouse, a cat, and a dog housemates, and she finds the grains and she decides to plant them and grow them and take care of them so she can make some bread or a cake depending on the version, but no one will help her, so she keeps having to say, then I'll do it myself, right? And they're all saying they won't do it. So I just hope that you guys notice that what I really enjoy about kind of fairy tales and folk tales is making connections and always thinking, that reminds me of another story I know or another character I've heard about. And that's something that you can always do at the end of a book, because you know you got to do something at the end of a book. And one great thing to do is to make a connection from text to text, right? Make a connection to a story that you already know, because lots of times when we're talking about folk tales, fairy tales, traditional tales, there are new versions. There are versions that are maybe set in a different place. For example, I read Princess and the Pea to you last week. Oh, I'm not sure what I did with it. And it was like the traditional tale of the Princess and the Pea, but it turned out that the setting was in Peru. That's why they had all those beautiful woven textiles and the guinea pigs, right? So it was like the traditional tale of the Princess and the Pea, but it had a different setting and a little bit of a different story, right? So today I'm going to read to you another fairy tale with a bit of a different setting. So this is called Abuelo and the 3 Bears. So Grandpa and the 3 bears. And on the cover I see a grandpa maybe and a grandma and a family sitting around. There's a baby. And there's also some bears at the table with them. And you know what's on the back of this? This is a fun book. This is a bilingual book. It's English from this cover through the book, as you'll see while we read it. And then on the back, it's in Spanish, going in the other direction. And we're going to read the English version today. Abuelo and the 3 Bears by Jerry Tello. Illustrations by Ana Lopez Escriva. And it's by Scholastic. Abuelo and the 3 Bears. Oh, so I see, looks like the daddy bear, the mama bear, and the baby bear. But the dad, his face is kind of scrunched up, and he's got a bowl of something there. I wonder, in Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, the bowls are full of oatmeal, or porridge. I wonder what's going to be in these bowls. Here we go. So there I see the grandpa out on the porch sitting and talking with a young boy, and there's a cute little cat. And then I see in the kitchen there's a grandma, maybe with the mom, and it looks to me like maybe they're making tamales. No, I think they're making tortillas. Yeah, it looks like they've got masa in a bowl and water, and the mom is rolling it into a ball, and well, let's just look at the whole picture first. And then you can see the mom has it in a ball and the grandma is flattening it out. Maybe they're making tortillas back there. Oh, that's really making me hungry for lunch. Okay, here we go. It was a quiet Sunday. Emilio and his grandfather sat on the front porch. Abuelo, said Emilio, do we have to wait much longer? When will everybody get here? Your cousins will arrive soon, Abuelo answered, and we'll have a fine dinner. I'll tell you a story to pass the time. Oh, so if I sneak peek the pictures, I can see these pictures have a bear family in their house doing stuff. And then down here in the corner, I can see Abuelo telling the story to Emilio. So he's going to tell the story. Once there were 3 bears who lived in the woods. Papa bear, Mama bear, and their little osito. One Sunday morning, Papa bear woke up as grumpy as ever. Then he smelled something good. Frijoles, he said. Abuelo, you're joking, laughed Emilio. Bears don't like beans. Well, all the bears I know like frijoles. Papa bear got up and rushed down to the kitchen. Buenos dias, said Papa bear to Mama bear and Osito. So there's Papa bear waking up, and down in the kitchen, the whole family. Papa bear sat down at the table and tucked a napkin under his chin. How are the frijoles? Are they ready yet? He asked. Yes, answered Mama bear, but they're still too hot to eat. I can't wait, said Papa bear. I'm so hungry I could eat an elephant. Abuelo, said Emilia, bears don't eat elephants. Emilio, answered Abuelo, you must never argue with a hungry bear. Stubborn Papa bear didn't listen to Mama bear's warning. Aye, he growled, jumping out of his chair. These beans are too hot. I told you so, said Mama bear. Why don't we take a walk into town while they cool? All right, grumbled Papa bear, whose mouth was still burning. So the bears left their breakfast to cool and went out. Oh, okay, so here I see a little girl walking down a path. Just then, in another part of the woods, a girl named Trencitas set out from her house to visit her friend Osito. She was called Trencitas because she had long black braids. Abuelo, Emilio called out, the girl in this story is called Goldilocks, and she has blonde hair. Goldilocks, Abuelo shrugged. In my story, it was Trencitas with her long black braids who came to visit. And she was hungry, too. When Trencitas arrived at Osito's house, she noticed that the door was open. So she stepped inside and followed her nose until she came to the 3 bowls of beans. First, Trencitas tasted some beans from the great big bowl, but they were too hot. Then she tasted some from the medium-sized bowl, but they were too cold. Finally, she tasted some from the little bowl, and they were just, what do you think she's going to say? Right, just right. So she finished them all up. Now Trencitas decided to sit in the living room and wait for the bears to return. She sat in the great big chair, but it was too hard. She sat in the medium-sized chair, but it was too soft. Then she sat in the little chair, and it was just right until, ellipses, dun dun dun, crash! Oh no, she broke it. So there Trencita is walking to Osito's house. There she's tasting the porridge. And there she's having a crash on his little chair. Abuelo, what's Trencitas going to do? Asked Emilio. She broke her friend's chair. Don't worry, Abuelo said. She'll come back later with glue and leave it like new. Trencitas was feeling very sleepy. She went upstairs to take a rest. First she tried the great big bed, but the blanket was scratchy. Then she tried the medium-sized bed, but it was too lumpy. Finally, she tried the little bed. It was too small, but it was so cozy and soft that Trencitas soon fell asleep. When the three bears came home, Papa Bear headed straight to the kitchen to eat his frijoles. "Ay!" he growled when he saw his bowl. "Somebody's been eating my beans." "And somebody's been eating my beans," said Mama Bear. "And there's only one bean left in my bowl," said Osito. Then the three bears went into the living room. "Ay!" said Papa Bear when he saw that his chair had been moved. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair." "And somebody's been sitting in my chair," said Mama Bear. "And my chair's all over the place," said Osito. So here's Trencita asleep upstairs. And here are the bears going into the living room and seeing Osito's chair all over the place. The three bears climbed the stairs to check out the bedrooms. Papa Bear went first. Mama Bear and Osito followed behind him. "Ay!" said Papa Bear when he looked in the bedroom. "Somebody's been sleeping in my bed." "And somebody's been sleeping in my bed," said Mama Bear. "Look who's sleeping in my bed," said Osito. He ran over to Trencitas and woke her up. And they all had a good laugh. By now it was getting late. Mama Bear said they'd walk Trencitas home to make sure she got there safely. Papa Bear did not like this idea. "Another walk?" he growled. "What about my frijoles?" "There'll be beans at my house," offered Trencitas. "I bet that made Papa Bear happy," said Emilio. "You're right," said Abuelo. "And here's what happened next." Dun, dun, dun. There's ellipses after that. So the story's not over yet. There's Osito waking up Trencitas. And I wonder what's going to happen when they go back to Trencitas' house. When they all arrived at Trencitas' house, they sat down at a long table with Trencitas' parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, and lots of cousins. They ate pork and fish and chicken and tortillas and beans and salsa so hot it brought tears to their eyes, and they laughed and shared stories. "So, you see, Emilio," said Abuelo, "Papa Bear had to wait a long time to eat his frijoles, but in the end, he had a wonderful meal and lots of fun, just as you will when your cousins arrive." So there is Trencitas' family and the Bear family enjoying a big, fun Sunday meal. And there's Abuelo finishing up the story for Emilio. "Is that the end of the story?" Emilio asked. "Yes," answered Abuelo, "and it's the end of your waiting too." And sure enough, we can see all the cousins arriving, and in here at the table, I can see people are having beans of frijoles and tortillas. Okay. And over here, you can see the book is upside down because that's the end of the story in Spanish. So, I hope you enjoyed that story about Abuelo and the three bears. You know, at the end of a story, we're supposed to do something, and I'm already making a connection to Goldilocks and the three bears, of course, which we already talked about. But I'm also wondering if there's a little lesson or moral to the story, right? What was Abuelo kind of doing and teaching Emilio when he was making him wait and telling him a story? And he said something about how Papa Bear had to learn to wait for his frijoles, but in the end, what did they learn? I'm wondering if you can think about that. Please email me and let me know what you think, what the lesson or moral of that story could have been of Abuelo and the Three Bears. So that's it for today. Tomorrow on Tuesday at 10 o'clock, we'll be having our Tuesday meetup. So I hope that your parents have gotten the link via email, and I hope you can think of something special, something you're excited about to show and tell about during our meeting for a short time at the end of our meetup. It could be some new book, favorite book you're reading now, some of your writing, some artwork, maybe a toy that's really special. Maybe you've gone out and about outside. Now be very careful. I did pluck this off one of my trees, but it was just a small little piece of a tree. But maybe you found something outside in nature that you would like to share, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Please be sure to keep washing your hands, cover your coughs and sneezes, help your family around the house, do some reading and some writing. I miss you guys. I love you. Elbow bump.